This is the Authentic Change Podcast, and I am Mike Horne. Authenticity reflects what we want from each other and our organizations: open communication, trust, community, fun, and opportunity. I want to help you to do your best in your personal and professional relationships. This podcast delivers expertise, insights, and approaches on authentic leadership, to live your purpose, to lead from your values, to establish connected relationships, to steward people and culture change, to build and sustain prosperity, and to open doors and possibilities. This podcast will assist you in paving the way forward to personal, team, and organizational prosperity. Welcome to this episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horne. I am absolutely delighted today to have in our virtual studio Richard Newman. He will provide insight on authenticity and integrity in ways that I think you'll find are uniquely shaped by his experience. Richard Newman is the award-winning writer and an in-demand speaker with expertise in leadership communication, storytelling, mindset, and personal impact. Richard is the founder and chief executive officer of BodyTalk, Global Leaders in Evidence-Based Communication. Since 2000, Richard and his team have trained 100,000 people worldwide with clients from 46 countries. I'm delighted that Richard is making time to be with us on Authentic Change with Mike Horne. Welcome, Richard. You've got such a great story. I want you to tell it. I wouldn't do it justice. Talked about your who you are today as a speaker, consultant, trainer. Tell us about yourself, though.
Thanks, Mike. Well, great to be here with you. So my fascination with communication really started when I was 4 years old, where I was really happily at a school where I had a bunch of friends. And then my parents up sticks and moved to another area. So I had to go to a brand new school and sort of start over making friends. And I remember being there quite distinctly. It was just before my 5th birthday. And I remember trying to reach out to kids in the class across the table from me and trying to get a connection with them, and was really struggling and felt all alone, felt like I was in a glass bubble, unable to connect with those around me, and really wasn't sure why. I could see that they could connect with each other, but I wasn't able to connect with them. And that question of, what is it that's wrong with me? What is missing here? Why can't I connect with them? Really traveled with me all the way through the next 40 years to where I am now, age 44, of that pursuit of understanding what is it that allows one human to connect with each other, one human to connect with the next, and what is it that engages that person? Because I was distinctly unable to do that through my childhood, through my upbringing, going through school, and came out to the other side at 18, where I had the opportunity to go to university, but I turned that down. And instead, I went off to India to live in the foothills of the Himalayas, as you mentioned, where I was living with these Tibetan monks, teaching them all how to speak English. And the reason this involved things like body language and tone of voice, which I talk about today with my clients, is that when I got there, these monks couldn't speak English. They just spoke Tibetan, Nepali, and Hindi. And I could speak a little bit of French and a little bit of German, but none of the languages connected. And so we had to figure out a way to connect with each other non-verbally. And from the basis of doing that, over the course of the next 6 months, I taught them how to speak English. They taught me how to speak Nepali, which was the main language of the area. And I was transformed by the experience of being able to really connect with people beyond words. And so from there, I then studied acting for 3 years in London, studying stage presence, storytelling, confidence, voice work. And from that, launched my business really as a hobby because I was so fascinated by it. I was reading hundreds of books in the area of communication and just wanted to share this with people. And a word of mouth spreads, and I've got a bit of a reputation of doing a good job. And as you mentioned, we've now trained over 100,000 people, which is really humbling. And it's all come out of that question of trying to figure out what is the science of human connection? What is that science of communication, and wanting to share it with people so they can have greater communication, greater relationships with the people around them.
And what's the answer now?
Oh, that's a great question. For me, it comes down to one simple word, which is lift. So let me explain that. So I'm recently diagnosed with high-functioning autism, which means that there's a challenge that autistic people have in communicating with those who are neurotypical, which means most people. So high-functioning autistic people, they can communicate really well with each other, but there's a block in speaking to those who are neurotypical. And so I've always had to try to figure out, okay, what is it that they are doing that I am not doing? And I'll give you an example of what this means regarding banter. So I don't understand banter. I look at banter, and banter is where two people insult each other and then laugh at each other. And as you can imagine, if I do that, it doesn't go very well. And so I had to find, well, what's the way in? What are they doing that actually makes this work so it elevates the relationship rather than damaging the relationship? And the answer was lift. And what lift means is that in that situation of banter, each person is approaching it wanting to make the other person reach an elevated state. They're aiming to elevate the energy in the room. They're aiming to elevate the mood of the relationship, the mood of that conversation. And that's what allows it to work. And so if you approach banter with the intention of lifting the other person, you insult them and laugh in their face, and they feel better and they like you more. Now, if you take that approach of lift into other situations, imagine that you're approaching a presentation. So many people get afraid of it. They put loads of ghastly bullet points up on a slide and just trying to hurry through it to get it over with. And there's really no connection. But if you transform your approach and you say, my goal is to lift the people I'm speaking to. My goal is that by the end of me speaking, that the people in the room or the people on this virtual presentation with me will feel elevated by having listened to me. They will feel inspired, or they'll feel reassured, or they'll feel more connected with me. Anything along those lines. You're elevating their state out of fear, anxiety, apathy into a more elevated position. And the same goes day to day. If you approach interviews with the intention of lifting the other person, if you approach relationships, going on a date with the intention that the other person feels lifted by your interaction, that is really the key. And everything else that myself and my team have been teaching people for 21 years comes down to that element of, can you lift the other person by the end of that interaction? And if you do, you become a trusted advisor, you become a wanted person within an organization, and you increase the value of your relationship.
How do we know when someone's ready to be lifted?
Oh, great question. So I would approach this perhaps from a different angle to say all human beings essentially want to get to that state where they're moving away from fear and moving towards love. That's the place that we really want to be. That's our natural state. And so you'd be right to say, though, that if you go into some meetings, you might think this person doesn't want to be lifted right now. They want to be in a state of anxiety or fear or self-pity or vengeance or any of those other places. And we often get this pushback when we are working with people, where we train clients internationally on conflict resolution or on high-level negotiations. And they'll say the same thing to us, saying, this person just wants to tear me to pieces and put me in the ground, and that's really what they're here for. And what I say to them is, if you approach the meeting believing that the person is not ready to be lifted, believing that this person has a negative intention to you, without question, you're going to end up with a more negative result. If you approach it knowing that you will do whatever you can to connect from one human to another, and with the pure intention that they will feel more lifted by this experience, then you're much more likely to get a positive result. Plus, you sometimes get it where when by the end of the meeting, they may not have agreed, they may not have budged or shifted, but that conversation is more likely to stay with them such that weeks, sometimes months, even years later, they reflect on that conversation and feel appreciation for your intention to lift them.
What values drive people to lifting behaviors? I can't imagine that everyone wants to lift. I imagine that people who want to succeed want to lift and elevate others. What values drive those behaviors?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, for me, the place where I approach this from is to say, for all human beings, we like that sense of having connection with others. And if you're not in a state of wanting to be really deeply connected with others, then you may find that will come to you in time. But if you don't want to be connected with others, you might want to be appreciated by others or promoted by others, or you might want people to follow what you have to say or sell them more products, or be more involved or more successful in business or have stronger relationships. And so when we talk about values around lift, I would encourage people to always approach that with a sense of integrity towards the other person, genuinely wanting that other person to feel elevated by interacting with you, and coming from a place of, if you do that, not only is that good for them, it's good for you, for your reputation, it's good for your legacy years afterwards. People will look back on how you acted in those high pressure situations, and they will know whether you approached with the intention of lift or whether you approached from a selfish position. And that leaves a legacy of your reputation that people will look back on. But no matter what it is that people want to achieve, if they want to have better relationships, if they want to improve their sales, if they want to feel that they are achieving more in terms of public speaking on a stage, or being a better leader, no matter what it is that people have as a goal, and we've worked primarily with people in business, no matter what your goal is, if you work from the intention of lift, those goals that you've set out for yourselves are much more likely to be achieved. But of course, it does put you into the position, in order for this to really work, it's not a manipulation tool. This isn't something that you can use with no integrity and think, I'm just going to do this to get one over the other person. So there's many techniques that are taught in communication, which is really a manipulation strategy just to get the other person to give you approval, or to get the other person to buy your products, or to get the other person to give you a round of applause if you deserve it or not. And when you approach from the position of lift, you have to do it with integrity to work. It has to come from a positive intention, and therefore it drives you towards the more positive values that you have, which may be a sense of connection, care about other human beings, having a sense of honesty, all of the higher values that we hold or aspire to have.
It's almost, you have to be the real deal in order to lift.
Yeah.
If you have to, when I think about integrity, I think about the whole cloth, the genuine article. If I was an engineer, I'd think about a structural engineer. I'd think about everything hangs together. It's the whole cloth.
Yeah.
So that requires, levels of self-awareness that are done in with feedback and with community. So in order to lift, then I think I need that level of self-awareness. I need to be genuine with myself.
I think it's a great take on it. I mean, you're absolutely right. You have to be the real deal. And what I like about it is it forces people to approach a meeting with integrity. It forces them to approach it as one human connecting with another human. And, with the clients that we worked with around the world, my team have hosted 3,000 training sessions in the last 18 months, doing virtual sessions with people all over the world. And we often ask them, what are your values? What do you want right now? What are your challenges that you're finding? And most people, no matter which country they're coming from, are saying that they want to feel more connected with others. They care about their work having honesty and dealing with leaders who are authentic with them. This is what people want. They want real human connection. And actually, I think that the pandemic has given us a great opportunity we didn't have before, because we've seen our leaders and VPs and CEOs sitting in their living room and not wearing a three-piece suit with a tie and a handkerchief. And we've started to realize, okay, we don't have to have the corporate armor and the glass buildings. We can actually have a connection with a real other human being. And that's allowed us in this path down towards the real deal, as you put it. It's allowed us a big jump forwards, because now we can see humans as humans. We've seen our boss homeschooling their kids and looking after their dog while trying to lead a team meeting. And so I'm not sure that people really need to have a huge level of self-awareness. They just need to believe or focus in rather on that intention of lifting others, and know that that is the reason I'm here. And I'm going to test every PowerPoint slide and every note that I've got down here about what I say on whether or not this is going to be a win-win in this situation where they feel lifted and I feel fulfilled by the experience. Or am I actually aiming for win-lose? Or am I, in fact, just rushing through random information to get this meeting over with? And so as soon as you just test everything based on will this lift or not, then you can cut out the dross and focus in on a more fulfilling interaction.
When individuals and leaders disclose about themselves, they open up an opportunity for engagement.
Yeah.
So, to your points around, to your ideas on, I see the person walking the dog. I see them, without a business armor on, that this makes for a more genuine interaction. And, at the other end, at times we see the lavish displays of our executives in this regard. And it raises another set of feelings. And so I'm connecting that to how do we, what have you experienced, now that we're entering the COVID endemic, it seems. How do you experience this form of disclosure changing differently? And what does that say about our ability to be authentic with one another?
Yeah, I think something that has been certainly missing in the past in business is that aspect of vulnerability. And I think, partly thanks to the brilliant TED Talk by Brené Brown and her subsequent books and a Netflix special, people are starting to get aware that actually vulnerability is okay. And I also think that during this time of doing virtual meetings, people have started to get to that place where that they realize it's all right to be a human being. It's all right to have a life outside of work. And I think what leaders are starting to take on board is that they don't need to hide in the way that they previously felt that they had to do. That people are much more willing to follow them, to be led by them if they see a real human being. And in the past, you may have had the leader share something about themselves, which was just much more polished. It was, I did this amazing thing and I worked exceptionally hard and I hit the highest grades and therefore you should follow me because this is who I am. Whereas now I think people are more willing to open up about, well, who they really are as a human. You see people doing virtual meetings where they got pictures of their kids behind them, or their Frisbee collection. And suddenly they become this rounded human and not just that person who's in charge of deciding if I get a bonus. And so I notice leaders in different companies that we're working with now more prepared to be a fully rounded human and seeing that that's a good thing, that we don't need to leave our personalities at the door. And, this is part of, to come back to the methodology behind how you would lift someone, that vulnerable connection of showing I'm a human, you're a human, let's connect as humans, is very much a path forward that I would encourage leaders to continue to take. And, when we eventually get to that place where everyone can be back in the office at all times, not to slip back into the mode of the armor of the past, but in fact, move forward with that greater authenticity that we've been able to find with each other during this time.
I think that every conversation is improved when it begins with hello.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
And difficult as many experience requests from others as requests for production, and many see the other person in front of them as an element of production. Like, I really don't want to waste my time talking with this person. I need them to get this report done. I need them to take this action.
Yeah.
And most times I don't know what happened to my direct report of the person in front of me, a person I'm working with 5 minutes ago, and I won't know what happened to them 10 minutes after we meet. But I have this time to be in the moment and present, and to be fully there to bring more of who I am to what I do. And in turn, I hope to increase the connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that personal connection has been so important for clients we work with, and also, within my own team. That when the pandemic hit, there was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and there's so much that has been a challenge for people with mental health during this time, because we're just not used to being isolated. But so many people in companies had the reaction of thinking, does my leader care about me? Will this person protect me? Will they support me? Do they even know who I am as a human being? Do they know what I'm going through at this moment? And leaders and teams, companies who are able to show people, I care about the whole human being. And I'm not just saying that because I think it will improve the bottom line. I genuinely care about the people that I'm working with. Who are they? What do they need from me? What can I do to help make them their best today? Not just at work, but every day. Those are the people, those are the leaders that people want to be working with. And, this isn't the only crisis that we're going to be facing. Who knows what other storms we have ahead of us, other pandemics or other situations that may come in the many years that follow this. And so I think it's critical that people understand that having that personal connection with team members isn't something that they should just do based on, well, will it make my numbers go up or down? But it is critical to the human experience. Even you see this with people in business who may do tremendously well and make numbers go up and sell lots of products, but they may look back with regret and say, actually, I wish I'd made more time for relationships, and there were people all around them. They just didn't choose to relate.
Well, you can't innovate without a relationship. And innovation is at the core of organization sustainability and how we think. So I resonate with everything that you're proposing, and to engage at this level of connection comes from this place of integrity that you've described and you've discussed about, and that I've chimed in with around genuine article and whole cloth, and to think about walking this path authentically, where my words and actions match as because I think maybe that's what moves us from connection to engagement. I think what underlies the lift concept that you've been describing is that, you described it in terms of the science of connection and engagement, or to connect and to engage. So you have this orientation on connecting, built on, I think, some humanistic values. I think it's this ability to say, I value you as an individual. I grow inclusion around me by having diverse people and diverse ideas, finding dignity in the context of the situation. So I think all of those drive out of a certain sense of humanistic values. But perhaps underscoring it all is the act of caring, and maybe that is leadership work. It's the primary behavior. It's to care.
Yeah. And I think, we've come forward so much in the last few decades where if you go back a few decades, people were grateful to have a job, a secure job that they could show up to, that would pay the bills. And as such, leaders back then could say, this is what you're going to do. and not need to give any reason behind why, because people were grateful for the work and the stability. And we've come so far since that point that if you say, this is what you're going to do, people are not interested in just following it. They want to know, well, why? And what does this mean for me? And does this feel fulfilling? And does this match my values? And, I think we've become much more human in our demands for what we want from our work. It needs to have meaning. It needs to be purposeful in order for us to consider continuing going. And I've spoken to some leaders who we coach who've said, but why can't I just tell people to do the things that I want them to do? And you're right that we need to be in that place of being more caring of each other as humans and having a meaningful reason for moving in one direction or the other.
Because if you have a client asking, why can't I just tell them and they'll do it, then it's static. It's not doing anything except, sitting there. So that's the second part of leadership beyond caring. It's to do some work.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge for leaders in this lifetime, where they may have seen, depending on how long they've been in their working lives, decades back, they may have seen a leader who they thought, well, that person's getting the work done, I'll follow them. And 30 years on, if they're doing that same sort of behavior of leadership, it's not going to work. Times have changed, people have changed. We're in a different society now than we used to be, and so. It's very important for people to work now more than ever on these skills that are called soft skills. Who knows whoever came up with that term? These are the hard skills. You got to do the work on it and work on yourself. And for me, the position is always, if I start with people saying the intention you need to have is to lift others. Sometimes they may say, okay, I get it. I just don't know how to get there. But that's, a great place to start with intention rather than strategies and tactics around other things, making sure that's where we're heading. And then you've got a goal and then you can figure out how you can get there. But you're right to say, I loved how you mentioned earlier that good conversations start with hello, where I've been to events. In fact, I went to one just a couple of years back where I showed up and I think there was maybe like 20 people in the room, something like that. And the instructor was at the front of the room, the person hosting the event, and they wouldn't engage in conversation with anyone before the session was due to start. And exactly the moment the session was due to start, they turned around dramatically to the audience and started telling this story that just seemed out of place, where they said, as I arrived this morning in the car park, and it just seemed to have no connection with the people in the room. But they planned out their speech and that was what they were going to say. And I've heard people say to me recently, I really want to come across like I've got this perfect, polished TEDx way of delivering my information. But if you look at the number one TED Talk of all time by Ken Robinson, which has had something like 80 million people watch this talk. What's fascinating about it is that he doesn't do that perfect, polished slide deck or story. He starts with a lovely conversational way of saying, well, thanks everybody for having me here. I hope you're having a great day. I'm having a great day. The speaker before me was fantastic. And, I'm now wanting to talk to you about this. He leads into it with genuine, authentic, saying hello, connecting with the audience, and then moving on to what he wants to say. And that's the most viewed TED Talk ever. So you're right that approaching people as if they are people is important. And you also referred to congruency that needs to happen. And this is where often we do the work with people to say, okay, you've got a good intention now. How do we actually make sure that comes to life? And that congruency can come out through working on making sure the body language, the tone of voice, the words, the slides that you might be using in a situation, that everything is moving in the same direction. And that's sometimes where we have to do the work with people to help them take off bad habits of the past and the armor that may be holding them back or weighing them down, to get back to a place where they are really just a human connecting with others rather than dragging in bad habits that may prevent that connection from happening.
And I describe that as authenticity, when our words and actions match, and better when our thoughts, words, and actions match, when our attitudes, behaviors, and cognitions are in alignment. that creates congruency, which results in happiness. Congruent people, when head, heart, and hands are aligned, experience happiness. Not a sense of dramatic happiness, but a sense of sustained happiness. And people like to work with other happy people.
Yeah.
And I think about that as a way to lift, to use your, frame of reference.
Yeah.
To be congruent, to be authentic in my thoughts, words, and actions.
This is absolutely right. And it's something that I love talking about a lot, that sense of complete alignment with your purpose and your words. People can see it, they can feel it. They know if you are really truly aligned. And this has been very powerful for our business, to put it in that term, where when we go and meet with a potential client and they say they're meeting with a couple of others, they very often come back to us and say, we just went with you because you just seem to be a real human who really believes in what they're saying. And you're not just the salesperson who's been told to sell that product. What you're doing, your life, and what you are aiming to achieve in your mission, everything feels like it is aligned. So people respect that, and it leads to greater success.
If I don't think you have integrity, I'm unlikely to trust you. If I don't trust you, I'm likely to think you don't have integrity. So because we don't live in a world where we trust everyone about everything, we work on aligning towards what matters at work: purpose, mission, community. And by doing that, I think we lift, we engage, we connect. We take it in that order to bring more value.
Yeah, and I think this piece around trust and alignment is so important to me on a personal level, because the autism spectrum disorder, from my perspective, one of the things that it limits is that ability to read the behavior of other people. And I've noticed, through my life, there have been people who I have implicitly trusted because I heard them say, this is what I will do. And what I wasn't noticing was the other behavior that was going around it. Other people could see that behavior and said, don't you realize those words are not aligned with the behavior? And I had to learn from the ground up. I had to study books, study people. I did scientific research that we published all around this piece of what it means to be aligned between body language, tone of voice, and words. Because when we see it, we feel that person is charismatic because it's what we get drawn towards, that sense of true alignment. But it's also something that I help coach people on, because sometimes they really mean what they're saying. They just don't seem it because there's so much baggage from the past that's getting in the way. So yeah, you're right. That complete alignment is critical. And so, people have to also remember this when they are in the corporate field. People think, well, if I say the right words, if I say 7.5%, then, people should just listen to what I'm saying and that should be enough. But actually, no, we're looking for, is your words and your actions, are they really aligned? Can I see that in front of me? And that's why, with peace talks, they get done face to face, because we want to see that person. We want to look into their eyes and understand if we really believe them or not. So the actions are critical in that element of trust.
Wonderful. That's amazing. And it's so great to find alignment in the ideas of integrity and authenticity and the science of connecting and engaging others. Richard, if others wanted to be in touch with you, how would they do that? How would they begin to connect with you?
So they can come and find me and my team at ukbodytalk.com. You can also connect with me on social media. So I'm on LinkedIn. It's Richard Newman at BodyTalk. And I'm also on Instagram, if you're on there, at Richard Newman Speaks.
Have you used BodyTalk for 20 years as well, or 22 years? I think that's what you described the length that you've been in business. Has it always been BodyTalk?
Yeah, so I wanted to get the web domain bodytalk.com, and it just wasn't available. So I made it ukbodytalk.com because I'm based in the UK, but our working name is BodyTalk because we teach people worldwide.
And as you teach BodyTalk, we've talked about the ideas underlying it. We've talked about integrity and authenticity and the relationship to the science of connecting, engaging, and lifting others. As you think about, do you also explore then in BodyTalk workshops, presentation skills, or you're really going beyond that in addition? Help me out, help our audience to understand that, and me.
Yes. So when we teach people, they might sign up for a course on presentation skills, but we've always sort of failed to explain to people in advance what the great depth of the ripple effect of that course is going to be. And so if I give you an example, there was a lady who came on our presentation skills course. We know that what we're doing there is deep work on transforming their behavior. We're doing deep work on transforming their physical actions, the way they use their voice, their connection with really finding their voice and being able to free it up and speak their truth, their ability to take their ideas and make them meaningful using the power of storytelling. And so there's this lady who went through a couple of days workshop with us, and I went back to lead the advanced session with her team 6 months later. And they said, do you know what's happened to her? Have you any idea what's happened since that event? And I said, what, you mean since the presentation skills session? They said, yeah, it's transformed how she feels about herself. She was unhappy before, now she's happy. She was struggling in her family, and now her marriage has come to life. She's winning more clients because what you've done is freed her up to be more of herself, let her know that it's okay, and she's become more of herself than she's ever been in her life. So yes, so we teach presentation courses, storytelling courses, mindset courses, but for me, I'm always thinking about the personal development. What is that person gaining as a human to come more to life and be more of themselves?
Bringing more of who we are to what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, our goal and quest.
That's certainly my goal.
Yeah, it's just awesome to connect with you, and for our audience to know that they can reach you at ukbodytalk.com or find Richard Newman on social media. What do you think's next in your world of work, Richard? I mean, as the work world continues to evolve?
Yeah, I think that the key piece for people as they approach us right now, what people used to approach us for 15 years ago was very much a fear of being able to speak to a large group and that sort of formal presenting behind a lectern. What people are approaching us for right now is really two things. Firstly, people are starving for, craving human connection with one person connecting with another. And that's, partly due to the lockdowns, due to people feeling separated and isolated for 18 months, craving a connection with another human. So we're doing lots of deep work coming up on particularly focusing on that. But there is a flip side as well, where clients come to us worldwide saying that their team have just forgotten how to stand up in a room with a group of other humans and not fall to pieces, because it's suddenly this alien experience. They've done lots of virtual meetings for a year and a half, but they haven't done much of standing in front of a group. And I would say, as a professional speaker, I've just started getting back on stage with large audiences, and it was a strange feeling, even though I'd normally do about 150 of them per year, to be on a stage in front of a group of human eyes in the room with you. So working with people very much in this next year on that special connection between two human beings, but also helping people get back on their feet with what it's like to connect when the person is in the room with you, not just at the end of a webcam.
Wonderful. I mean, really helping all of us to tap into our reservoirs of resiliency as we design work and life to bring more of who we are to what we do. Again, thank you so much, Richard Newman. It's been great having you. And ukbodytalk.com. That's the place to connect with Richard, if not on social media. Once again, Richard, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Until the next episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horne, stay well.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll subscribe today and tell a friend about our show. If you're looking for hands-on help to increase your success through authentic change, or have a question you'd like to hear me answer here, please email me at mike@mike-horne.com.